these Africans, she said, that spoke in grunts and had not learned the language. And she told the story of how they was broken up and very few stayed among them. So obviously they were auctioned off and went from different places and were sold. She witnessed the last auctioning of the slaves before the Civil War. And then she would tell a story that we tended not to believe, and she would reinforce the story to the point where we would stop arguing with her. And that was the story that she said she witnessed General Sherman marching to burn Atlanta, and she saw him, her language, I seed him. Mm. His eyes were redder than a coon's. Mm. And we said, Mom Mary, you know you didn't see General Sherman. I seed him, she said. Mm. Going down to burn up Atlanta. Everything in sight. Meanest man God ever created. Don't know why he burned up the city. I wish I could create her language. It was the beauty of black speech was in her language. Now, there are three women that I have worshipped and thought they could do no wrong. Ma Mary, my own mother, and my fifth grade teacher, Evelina Taylor, in Columbus, Georgia. This was one of the women in my life that not only that I have worshipped for their beauty, their grace, and the things they have imparted in me as a person, but I think my character and my attitude toward the female gender is shaped
by those three women.
By those three women.
Tell me what your father looked like and what your mother looked like physically.
My mother was beautifully African, and you will see this in blacks in the South. My mother was dark-skinned with long hair, and we would sometimes, we had no electricity in those days, of course, and we would take the light out of the room, the lamp, and we would, the children would take mother's hair apart and comb it just to see if there was electricity in the hair. You know, we had no electricity in the house. We say all the electricity we had no lighting, had no, and so there was one man up the street, that was the preacher, he had electricity. You know, he was the only person in the house, and we would say, we've got electricity, mother's got electricity, and so we would comb her hair and see the sparkles. And that was the only electricity we had. And that was great fun for her, you know.
What did your father look like?
He was brown skinned. We call him biscuit brown. Biscuit.
Was he heavy set, slender, tall, short?
No, he was medium. So the girls in my family, my sisters tend to be brown skinned and the boys tend to be black, you know. But there was never any.
How many?
There was 9 all told.
What were your parents like? Were they church-going people? Were they disciplinarians? Were they strict?
Very much church-going. And my father was a great disciplinarian, but beneath it all a softy.
What did they insist on? Good manners and...
Good manners and respect for elders. And respect for parents, the kind of respect that I think would be good today, that an adult gets respect because it's an adult, whether it's your parents or not. And you grew up in a community where any adult can discipline any child, whether it's that parent's child or not. And you live with some respect for adults. When you see an adult coming, you begin to behave. any adult. My mother was a washerwoman, and I always went to pick up the clothes. Because she came late to the town, she didn't get any of the bundles of the rich white people, so she had to wash the clothes of the poor. And so, this is hard to remember now, but this is true. She would wash the clothes of a whole white family, $1 a week. Wash and iron, pick up and deliver for one family, $1 a week.
Turned you on to reading. How did that process happen?
Strangely, the Bible.
The Bible?
Yes. Looking for my people in the Bible. I could not believe that we were absent from God's book. In the Sunday school lessons, all the Sunday school lessons, I saw the angels were white. Every image was white. And I did not know at that time that the Sunday school lessons were printed by a white Baptist printing company in Nashville, Tennessee. And I began to ask, where were we in the Bible? I did not know that the Bible story, that the Christian story is basically an African story. I did not know that. If the story is unfolding in Africa and there are no African people in the story. I see Moses, and Moses was an African, going down to marry Zipporah, an Ethiopian woman. Zipporah gets white. Moses gets white. So now what is this? Where are the Africans? I found no Africans in Africa. See people going to the land of Punt, which is present-day Somali. They're black now. How did they get white? I began to have a feeling for something which I would investigate thoroughly later on, and that is the control of people by image.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a sense, though, that you had not originated in this country in which you were born? Was that transmitted to you by your elders?
No, my elders really just suspected, but they didn't know. I would get this in my teens. My father married again 2 years after my mother died. And because of my deep love for my natural mother, I was going to dislike my stepmother. Had she been a good stepmother, I was going to dislike her anyway. But she set it up perfectly. She wasn't a good stepmother. So I naturally did not particularly like her. And she made life rather miserable for me. And at the age of 14, I left home. During this time, looking for the image of myself and working for whites who had good libraries they rarely ever used. And sometimes when I borrowed books, they rarely ever missed them. And so I stopped bringing them back. So I grew up with, so now I'm beginning to accumulate a library. And blacks could not use the public library in Columbus, Georgia. And so I began to forge the name of white people on notes. Go into the public library and said, give this boy, you know, a certain book, as though I'm picking up a book for a white person. And so I would pick up the books for a white person and didn't bring them back. While working in Georgia, and I asked a white person, I still remember his name, Gag Steiner. He was a lawyer. I asked him for some books on African people in ancient history. He said, I'm sorry, John, and we say in the speech of our day, he let me down slow. He was kind. So I'm sorry, John, you came from a people that have no history. He said, but don't you worry that if you persevere and obey and behave yourself, and you might make history. Your people might make history one of these days, and you personally might be a great Negro like Booker T. Washington.